Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on this important matter. My name is Benjamin Krause. I am chair of United Veterans Leadership Council, which is a Minnesota-based nonprofit that was founded in 1968, working on in a bipartisan manner to support the needs of veterans in Minnesota. There's been a lot of conversation about a lot of things, and so I'm going to have to go off script to at least provide some degree of value here. I don't want to retread what other folks are talking about. So I'm going to bring up 3 points that haven't been addressed. First, there are laws that already exist that address what this is attempting to do. They've existed since at least starting in 1931. What is being complained of with claim sharks, which of course, I want to be clear, UVLC does not support. I, as a VA-accredited attorney, do not support that. We don't support veterans who are being defrauded of benefits. It's important, it's also required. I'm VA-accredited. If I were to support that type of thing, I would likely have problems with my own VA accreditation. On the side of that, we just don't agree with it. We think it's a bad practice. So in that context, I would turn your attention to MnStat 481.02. That is the unauthorized practice of law in Minnesota. It is well covered underneath the judiciary branch, and it's against the law. It's a misdemeanor. And if you combine that with the disclosure law that already exists from 2017, advertising that is inconsistent with the law is already punishable of up to $1,000 a day per fine or per occurrence per day. Additionally, with unauthorized practice of law, that covers basically consulting services that are providing legal services and filling out legal documents. If you've looked at any kind of document for a veteran where they're filling out a claim, it is, if you provide an inaccurate statement, it is punishable under a penalty of perjury and a number of other examples of crimes that could be broken at the federal level. So these are legal documents. So if you wanted to ratchet down on what is called claim sharks, unauthorized practice of law should be maybe the first place to look. Additionally, the disclosure law addresses a large amount of the legal issues with respect to unscrupulous advertising that could be also deemed fraudulent. So a little bit of background. Again, my name is Ben. I'm a Minnesota-based attorney. I went to the University of Minnesota Law School, graduated magna cum laude there. I am a disabled veteran. I served in the United States Air Force and have been helping veterans as a VA-accredited attorney across the country for over a decade. It's what I do for a living. It's how I feed my children. It's really important to me in what we do. I also help run UVLC, which keeps agencies and members of the public informed about the current status of bills and other issues within the state of Minnesota. So I was asked before I came in here to provide a little bit of an example of the difference between what it is to be a VA-accredited attorney and why we are different than claim sharks. I also want to point out why we are different than CVSOs. UVLC, and me personally, I love CVSOs. I love MDVA. I, as a veteran, had to fight with the Department of Veterans Affairs for over 10 years for my own benefits, and it required me becoming an attorney to finally win. Through that process, I was represented by multiple VSOs and CVSOs. I'm very familiar with the work that they do. As an attorney, I'm also familiar with the difference. I am licensed to practice law in the state of Minnesota. I'm also federally accredited, and I'm admitted to federal courts to represent veterans on appeal. So what I do is unique and different. As a VA-accredited attorney, I do not get paid on initial claims. The Department of Veterans Affairs federally, as well as U.S. Congress, has created an entire legal framework that governs exactly what we do. It's very clear that it is very well regulated. Just want to point that out. But from my perspective, I think that, you know, what is claim sharks needs to be developed. It needs to be analyzed. The law as written doesn't address what's going on here in Minnesota. I've already talked to the Senate side about it. The law as it's written actually pulls in VA-accredited attorneys, which is inappropriate. It may result in litigation sooner than later. That needs to be addressed. It's inappropriate for the state of Minnesota to require VA-accredited attorneys to force veterans to sign a disclaimer for the legal services that we are lawfully able to provide as officers of the court and through VA accreditation to veterans, where we have to force the veteran to acknowledge the services that they're about to pay us to do, they can get from a CVSO. Now, this is not a bash on CVSOs. What I do as an attorney took 4 years of an undergraduate degree, 3 years in a Juris Doctor, and getting my law license, and then getting VA accredited. A lot of different steps went into doing what I do, and the skills that we provide are different and unique. I also want to point out that many of the chartered VSOs, including disabled American veterans, have direct relationships with various law firms, including law firms in Rhode Island, where DAV does refer its higher level appeals for representation. The law firm's name is Chisholm Kilpatrick, CCK. That's a private law firm, not a veteran-owned law firm in the state of Rhode Island. When there's a good outcome on a claim, even a claim from Minnesota, that tax revenue goes over there to Rhode Island. I no longer practice here as far as representing Minnesota veterans because of the way the law is written. The law is written to pull me in, and if I violate it, in other words, if I don't force my clients to sign a disclaimer I disagree with, then I might be punished up to $1,000 a day per occurrence. The disclosure document is horribly written. It shouldn't be used. It needs to be addressed. I think this committee would be benefited to rewrite the legislation as it sits, to do a full rewrite of what used to be HF 1209 and then this particular bill, and make sure that it doesn't step on the toes of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs and the U.S. Congress, which has already decided over a decade ago that VA-accredited attorneys should be able to represent veterans for a fee, especially on complicated matters that include potential court appeals up through the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, I want to bring up one thing that was mentioned here about the Minnesota State Bar Association and the Military and Veterans Affairs. They were not consulted about this bill. I talked to them and I asked about their position. They were surprised to learn about this bill. So when we're talking about, the official body of attorneys in the state of Minnesota, the head of the MSBA at least told me last week after I talked with the Senate side that they weren't contacted about it and given the opportunity to respond in a working group. That's very important, especially if you're touching on what attorneys do under the judiciary branch. As this sits, it pulls VA-accredited attorneys underneath the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs. That's inappropriate. And it's a sub-agency. We don't respond or fall under the authority of the commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs. We just don't. We fall underneath the Minnesota Supreme Court. So as it's written, it needs to be rewritten, the entire statute. We need to protect veterans. It's important. UVLC believes it's important. I believe it's important. We should protect veterans. I called around yesterday and did a survey of the almost the 10 largest CVSO offices in the state that are responsible for 173,000 veterans, according to MDVA numbers. And I want to give you some feedback about what my observation was. The 5 counties that I called where I couldn't reach a live human that used auto dialers included Hennepin County, Ramsey County, Washington County, Carver County, and Stearns County. At least from my brief interaction with the phone, it appeared that I could not reach a live human. Now, there were 5 other counties that did have live staff that picked up the phone: Dakota, Anoka, Wright, Scott, St. Louis. When I asked them and told them what I am, what I'm doing, they chuckled a little bit that their offices were the ones that happened to pick up the phone. I'm happy that at least 5 of the counties that I called picked up. Now, I asked them about what it takes for a veteran to get in to talk to a accredited CVSO, and they said that you have to usually set up an appointment. They generally discourage walk-ins. The wait time to meet with a actual CVSO is 2 days to 4 weeks, according to the people that I talked to yesterday. And I'm happy to provide insight into that. Now, one of the things that came up that I was disappointed in was when I asked them about claim sharks, and I wanted to know about their experience. And it wasn't what I thought I was going to hear. I thought I was going to hear about the VFW flyer and the companies that were identified on it. some of which you are hearing from today, Veteran Guardians, Veteran Benefits Guide, companies like that. But that's not what they said. You know, they were telling me about an awful experience with sharks taking money that they shouldn't take, et cetera, et cetera. And then they described a scenario that included apparently a VA-accredited attorney that received a fee for the work that they did. And in their office, that was a claim shark. When I asked them about Veteran Guardians or any experience similar to that, she seemed confused about what a unaccredited consulting company was. Now, that doesn't mean that's the consensus. It was just one conversation I happened to have with somebody at one time. But I thought it was interesting that her example in her office of a claim shark was me, and I'm a veteran. So, pretty upset about it. So, thank you. I don't have anything else.
Thank you for your testimony. Next